The conversation you're about to hear today on the Media Roundtable is the first time we've released the uncut conversations that became the short series, What's a Podcast? The Revolution Redefined. I'm Dan Granger, CEO of Oxford Road and Veritone One and host of the Media Roundtable podcast. We're giving you the full-length version of specific conversations we had with about 30 of the leaders of podcasting today. That includes creators like Ira Glass, Guy Raz, so many others, as well as leading publishers, advertisers, and thought leaders, where we tried to sit around the table and debate what is a podcast, why does it matter, why'd you get into this to begin with, and what do we need to do to preserve that into the future as we build a bigger definition of what podcasting actually is. Some of these conversations are a snapshot of a very specific moment in time, but they're all durable and timeless in the importance of the conversation. I learned a lot. For me, this whole project was a love letter to podcasting and something that is able to blend real business value with the passion that brought me and so many others into this field. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. So with that, please enjoy this next installment of the full-length interview series, What's a Podcast? Welcome to the Media Roundtable. I'm Dan Granger, CEO of Oxford Road and Veritone One, and we are here today as part of our series, a very important series called What's a Podcast? Sounds like not that big an issue. It's certainly something we used to have to tell people a lot 10 years ago, but why are we asking this question now? And does it really matter what we call this thing that so much of us spend so much of our lives engaging with? And what's changing and what are we trying to protect and preserve? There's a lot of conversations to be had, given the rate of change that's happening in the industry right now. And who could be better to join us than Bryan Barletta, founder and partner at Sounds Profitable. You all know Bryan. He's a friend of the show and one of the most vocal advocates for the space. And so, Bryan, welcome to the Media Roundtable. I say let's just get into it. I know we don't have you for long.
Yeah. Look, I love the question, what's a podcast? I think that, we have so many layers, right? We have the advertising layer, we have the listener layer, we have all of us. And so, my kids asked me what my favorite TV podcast was the other day because they listen to podcasts 2 hours a day. So for them, podcast is like anything that they can listen to and enjoy, right? Anything that can have visuals but doesn't need to have it. And that's always fun on the listener side. But yeah, for me, it's audio forward, right? It is audio forward on demand content. And I love every part of it.
Okay, so you said anything they can listen to and enjoy, and then you added on demand. So in your view, if we're just talking technical definition, it sounds like you're in the audio first camp. Is there anything you would say about the word forward? Because I really want to dig into your words.
I like forward better than first or better than only. Like, I'm not a purist. I think we spend so much time focusing on RSS feeds and all that technical stuff. And like, it matters. Open distribution matters. But to me, open distribution is the choice to put my podcast on closed platforms, host it on RSS, put it up for file download on Gumroad, and literally do anything I want with it. If I want to press my podcast into vinyl and mail it out to people, I can. The people who created Severance, if for whatever reason Apple TV was just like, hey, we're done with it, right? They can't like do a screening of the final episodes in the back of like a movie theater or anything like that, or a bowling alley on a projector. I can with my podcast because it's open, it's free. So forward to me, I don't want to exclude video. I don't want to exclude social. I don't want to exclude live. And on demand, I think that that's the format, right? Like seeing a live podcast is a live show that is then recorded and is a podcast. Seeing a live stream, how you consume it in that moment. It's not that it's not a podcast. That's just not the podcast format of it, right? That's not the podcast product.
Well, so let's talk about that. Assuming that it's audio first, it's audio forward. Is there anything that distinguishes the content from other types of content that may be spoken word? Is it episodic by nature? Is it direct to consumer? Are there other attributes that you might say about this that you wouldn't say about another?
Interesting. So my wife got me into Murderbot Diaries. It's a series of books, but the Audible, like they're short. And there's like 7 or 8 of them, and they're really great. But I think one of them was like 2 or 3 hours on Audible. And if I remember correctly, Shipworm, I think that was the name of it. There was a podcast that was supposed to be like a movie through sound, and it was like 2 hours as one episode. And it was very cool. And what's the difference between that, right? Like, so I like what you're getting at here, because like what I said could be an audiobook too. And so I think I do like episodic, or I do like multiple episodes, being able to consume it. And that, like, the older I get, I'll sit down, and there's Apple TV, there's a movie called The Gorge that like I really want to watch,
Yeah.
but it's like an hour and a half. But I'll be like, we don't have time for that. And then we'll put on Cobra Kai and watch 6 episodes of that, which was 3 hours. And I won't even blink, because I had the option to end, right? It respected my time and wrapped up at points where I could pause, because my life, my kid might come out sick in the middle of watching it, and I don't want to pause that movie and forget where I am. But the episode ended, or it's close enough to the end of it that like I can just pick up on the next one and not really miss anything.
Well, and so what about the format itself? Like, if you take a radio show and you distribute it through an RSS, is it a podcast?
I think so. I think I'm comfortable with that. I think that the on-demand nature is what shines there. I think spoken word content, like we have things on YouTube called podcasts that have existed as long as podcasting, or even longer, right? Like there are video shows that are now calling themselves podcasts because it's a popular term, and I don't think it hurts anybody. So yeah, I think that, 6 months ago, a year ago, if I would have said, I want to create video content, you would have said, oh, you mean like a YouTuber? Today, you might say, oh, a podcaster. And
Oh,
if
so
that
you feel like
content,
in real time that's actually shifting in people's consciousness. The way people define it in their own minds, you believe is
yeah,
moving more toward
yeah,
encompassing video, whereas it wasn't a couple years ago.
I think it's the hot word, right? Like, I mean, even look at like the timeline of SNL and other things making fun of podcasting. Like, how
Right.
quickly did we go from Only Murders in the Building to whatever the Kristen Bell movie is, where like the podcaster is like not a dork in it.
Right. Right.
Like, I wanted to do a sign at one point that said "Time since last SNL joke" about podcasting, because it's
Yes.
getting longer and longer. It does have those bad stereotypes, but so does books, and so does radio, and so does TV and film, and like they're all there everywhere. Podcasting's stuck around, so I think it's a popular word right now.
Brian, the billion viewers or billion users on YouTube, do
Yeah.
you believe that there are a billion users of what we are defining as a podcast in this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it's like what I love about YouTube getting into podcasting is, it's, imagine if your favorite store just had a new shelf and it said that thing you love, right?
Mm.
Like, how many people on YouTube were doing long form content that maybe they just did some weird pan overs for like 30 to 60 seconds that would have been useless on audio, but now they've tightened it up and they just labeled themselves as a podcaster, and they get to go on that new shelf. And now they're catching a massive audience. Like, that's cool to me. Like, these people couldn't get the audience that they wanted by being competing in YouTube. So now they're in the podcast section of YouTube. They're blowing up. The top charts are with people that I've never come across. And so as long as I can turn off the audio and enjoy it, that's great.
Well, and so that's the distinguishing factor, and that's what I wonder if they're playing fast and loose with the term. Because, as far as I know, they're not actually coming out with a definition. Is that your understanding?
I'm not feeling like anybody's really gating anybody on that stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
they're
yeah.
gonna let people put it out there until it causes a problem. Like on Spotify, I think there's some game streamer who is like streaming Power Wash Simulator as a podcast. And I'm like, that feels bad, right? Like, without the visual element of watching them play the game, I am
Right.
going to be a quarter of the enjoyment. I'm going to bounce off way earlier. I understand why they're putting that video content in the app, but I think that's fair to say I wouldn't call that a podcast, because it is not enjoyable as audio only.
And do you think it actually matters what we call it? Do you think it has, particularly
Oh,
as
not even a
somebody
little
that's
bit.
well, so
Yeah.
let's talk. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, like, I'm not the first person to say this to you. And we like AJ Feliciano of the Roost podcast network, me and him talk all the time. And I know he's echoed this. Like, at the end of the day, if you buy podcasts, Dan Granger, right? And I say to you, okay, my show is majority of the full consumption is on YouTube over RSS. We do a live component that gets 300 people in there once a month. And my social clips, I create one social clip per baked in advertiser that we work with per each episode. And those get 2 million views on TikTok, Instagram, and all of that. If you say to me, that's all a podcast and I can buy it, man, that's great. But at the end of the day, like, if there's some shops, there's some agencies or brands that say, cool, you're 51% YouTube. That's my YouTube team. Oh, I can't touch that social. The live component, it's just going to have to be added value. And I think what it comes down to, the most important part is like, how can we monetize it? And ads are the strongest part of podcast monetization. Like my definition, to me right now, I want it to be a virus. The further it spreads, the more opportunity we have to pare it down. If we stop it today, we have to shape it smaller from what it is. If we let it grow, at a certain point, it's easier to kick out the things that are very clearly not it. And so I want it to spread as much as possible, but you're going to be one of those people that limit it, right? Like you're going to be one of those people who says like, I can buy that, but I can't call it a podcast. But then that's an easy way for an agency like yours to go into not just podcasts, but video, but social media, but live events, all of those things. And that's what I mean by a virus. I think it allows our expertise to spread.
Yeah. By the way, that's a new positioning of the argument, and I'm aligned with a lot of what you're saying. Like, I don't think we need to be too legalistic about its application. But that being said, I guess I would think about it this way too: is the labels actually can increase monetization. I think one of the challenges is if it falls into the sea of creator content that you find on TikTok or social media. One problem is the advertiser may not know what budget to pull it from, and
Yes.
it may be lined up against a bunch of things that are non-competitive. And if you're doing it if you're lining it up against media that is CPM driven, we both know that the person out the host reads are the most valuable asset that the channel has, right? If you don't distinguish that as a line item and actually treat it as you would influencer content, you're going to miss that opportunity. People are going to say you're not competitive on your pricing. So part of my concern is that if we don't label these things, if we don't have at least a working definition, marketers don't necessarily have a bucket to plan for, and therefore it gets lost and sidelined. I do think that's one of the challenges here.
I think weighting of it is important too, right? We need tools. Open distribution is a big part of podcasting, and we're dead in the water on that. Like this is a call to action to everybody listening. There's no longer a tool where I could upload my video content and my video ads, and then they could deconstruct it into audio, stitch in my baked in video and audio ads in that platform. Heck, I believe the only ad server on a publisher side that can track host read ads is Art19, right? Like there's no other way to track, baked in, not host read. And then be able to distribute that audio and video to YouTube, to Spotify video, to RSS, kick it off to social media like a Hootsuite and all of that. We lack that for distribution, but then further reporting. As we pull all those in, part of it is I need to be clear on that. Hey, here's my social media numbers. Here's my Spotify video, my YouTube, my podcast, everything, right? Even down to app versus web when it comes to where the podcast was played. And then it's up to people like yourself, and I think the general industry, to set averages on like, okay, your social media, we can take at 70% value. Right. We can't do like a flat CPM. Like if we set a standard CPM across the whole thing, the podcast being what gets 100% of it, some of it's going to get 25% value for weighting, and some of it's going to get 75%. It can't all be even.
Have you ever heard of any of these companies? Shopify, Bayer, Oracle, Indeed, Masterclass, Babbel, Tommy John, LegalZoom, Constant Contact. We could go on. And we could go on so much further now that we're joining forces with our friends at Veritone One. We have created the world's largest specialist agency in audio and in podcasting. Nobody's ever done anything like this before. And it's an exciting opportunity for everybody involved. What we do at this agency is we offer comprehensive services for brands that are looking to break out and be successful in this space. We call you the chief audio officer because we believe that what you need requires real specialist work. And the way that we approach it includes proprietary methods in media planning and buying, analytics and attribution, insights. We have a proprietary process called Audiolytics, which is our trademark method for creative development that allows us to score ads for their persuasiveness. Audio isn't just the work that we do, it truly is our passion, and we aim to elevate this industry to new heights. And that's why we're the leaders in brand safety and suitability, as well as in volume in the space. We try to provide solutions that ensure that your ad buys align your values that you have as a brand with your business metrics that you need to be successful. This stuff is hard, but we're here to make it a little bit easier for you. And if you're a chief audio officer seeking best in market performance at maximum viable scale, please get in touch with us. Do the right thing. Go to oxfordroad.com. And if you're passionate about audio, if you're strategic, if you're relentless, and you're looking for a career change, consider joining our mission as an agent of influence. Send us your resume through our website, oxfordroad.com. We made it really easy to spell. Sign up for our free newsletter, The Influencer, and be sure to mention that you heard about us right here on the Media Roundtable podcast, because attribution is important. Thanks, everybody. Let's switch to, because we're only going to get to cover so many topics, the video component, right? The lack of distinction between a video-led piece of content and an audio-led piece of content with video, right? Does that distinction matter as a product to you? Are you in both businesses, or do you specialize in one or the other?
Tom and I's stance has been really focused around your show doesn't necessarily need to have video, but you need to be on video. And I want to acknowledge that for men, it's easier than women on that end. And like, it's, like this, I'm heavier than I've been in a while, and I'm like insecure about it, but I'm still on here. I'm still fine with it. I made a cool background and all this stuff. Like, it doesn't, like, I'm going to do it. And I think it's valuable because, like, let's say we're sitting at a table together. If I was like, hey, Dan, check this out, I can show you a video if we're in a loud, noisy room. But if I'm like, you have to check out this trailer of a podcast. If I sat with you and pressed play on a 2-minute trailer,
Yeah,
and like made eye contact with you as we listened to it to see your reaction to it, it would be the most cringe thing that I could do. Right? Like, it doesn't land. So that video component, I think, is really critical to help sell it and market it and package it. But I don't know. Like, I wouldn't say I'm in the video business. It's just easy for me to turn the camera on.
Sure. Well, and I think there's a lot of reasons to do so, not the least of which is its promotional capabilities when you can chop it up and promote it, right? Like, that's a big argument for why it's good to have video. That being said, like, what got you into this medium? What first attracted you? What made your heart want to give up everything and move over? And was that something that was visual, or is that from something that hit your brain sonically and may not have had a video component?
So if I've been thinking about this a lot, and like the first podcast that I consumed were like Totally Rad Show, which was a video podcast. Like, video podcasting isn't new. I mean, you've been buying Twit and other people like that forever, but like, it just wasn't dominant. The apps didn't make space for it. It took so much more effort. They had to be in multiple places. It was just podcasting hit for more of them. Reflecting now as like Dig is coming back and Alex Albrecht is there, and I still listen to DLC with Jeff Kanata. Like, those people I listened to like 20 years ago, those are some of the first podcasts. But so was Justin McElroy on the Joystick podcast when he was like a nobody game reporter, but that was all audio. I would sit at my computer with Winamp open with my corded headphones and just listen and just like surf the web or play a video game or something like that. And so I would say the thing that stuck with me the most, the thing that I completed the most of and I was most consistent with, was audio. And then it went into things like Thrilling Adventure Hour, which is like dramatic narrative retellings, like stage performance style of like old time radio. It's really fun. How I got into the space, though, was attribution. We were at AdTheater at the time. WNYC asked Progressive, can we use your attribution technology on a podcast? Matt Drangler said yes. I hit mute and I said, what are you doing? And then we became a podcast attribution company. And then I was like, it was amazing because Serial was just so popular at that time and I was obsessed with it and we were all talking about it.
Well, and so let's park on that for a second. Yes, there was a business application that made it possible to pay the bills, but something tells me somebody with your passion wasn't just passionate about ad attribution and that there was something different about the content. Now, we had Dan Franks on, and it's interesting you bring up Serial, right? There is no Serial if they're forced to do video. There's This American Life. You have Ira Glass, who really, I think can we agree that he was really invented what became the dominant format for storytelling in the medium, right? This was done using theater of the mind. Go ahead.
I don't disagree with you. Okay, I definitely don't disagree with you, but I found that a few people have challenged my mindset on that recently because I don't need it to be a TV show. LA Times has 1 or 2 true crime podcasts that are shot with video, and it's Just it's a nice lit room, and it's the reporter reading what he was going to read, and then when they pull in other audio, they flip to like a voice form or wave form of that with transcripts, and I thought that was great. And Evan Shapiro was on stage with us at South by Southwest this past weekend, and he was like, everything should be in video. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but I said, what would you do for scripted narrative fiction? He's like, all in the same room like you would do it as a live show.
Yeah.
And I was like, we've been so focused on the fact that we can do this remote, we can do it async, we can relax on that. But the people doing these things are performers, they're actors, they're professionals on it. If they had to do it live, if they had to do it in less takes or things like that, not overcomplicated, not over-engineered, not overproduced, they could. The question is like, is there an audience for that? Would that actually grab more people? I would not watch someone talking into a mic. Like, I will never watch these podcasts that I'm on with you. I see the clip on social media and I share that because it gets the point across here. But I'm never going to watch the YouTube. I'm never going to watch the video because this is something I do when I'm walking home from work, when I'm at the gym, right? Like, it's something that I don't have to see it because I'm not losing anything.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't think I've heard anybody, self-included, make the argument that a podcast should never have a video component as an added feature, if that helps with distribution, if that helps. But I do think it's important that we don't pave over the origin of, right. And I think part of the challenge is with everybody moving off of RSS, not only do you blow up all measurement capabilities and standards that we've all been working so hard to start to unify around, right? There's a lot of new confusion that comes there, and there's a lot of pressure. I think you talked about it earlier. Some of it's, hits women harder than men. And some of it is, like, this is the point that Dan Franks was making, is that there are people that will actually not start their podcast because they believe they need to have a video component, and that is not comfortable for them. That's number one. Number two, I want to go back to theater of the mind. Your imagination has capabilities that we will never arrive at, even with AI.
Yes.
To create the visual aspect of what we want. And that constraint on the medium can create a canvas that is very uniquely different. And I don't want to see us lose that because we're jamming video onto everybody, whether it makes sense for the content they want to create or not.
I'm incredibly aligned with you on that. And that's the hard part, because in the sound bites and the headlines that podcasting is afforded, it is easier to just say video is taking over podcasting than the nuance of the fact that completion rates on videos are a third, a fourth of on podcasts, right? Like, even our small podcasts, right? Our video.
What's your source on that? Because I want to articulate it broadly.
I'm working to get more people to come forward with it. But if you search in general, hour-long completion rates on YouTube videos, like for the full audience, it's like 20% of your audience makes it to the end. Right. And you guys have the Oxford clock that talks about the first 2/3 of an episode being the most valuable. And the standard that's been, I want to dig into it more. I've asked people like the team at Bumper, and they can't disclose things because it's private with their clients. But everyone always used to say like, 70% completion rate, which, by the way, my shout out to everybody is maybe cut your credits or do them way faster, because a 5-minute outro is how I leave 5 minutes left in all your podcast episodes. But we get more completion. Like, even our show, you should look at it on your show in Apple Podcasts Connect and Spotify, and then in YouTube when you're posting it there. Our podcast episodes are 10 minutes or less, and we do double the completion in Apple and Spotify than we do in YouTube.
So you and I both work in the business of podcasting and adjacent media, right? Okay. So I'm going to make the kind of final case for why a definition would be helpful for the industry, and you react to it. Okay. We somehow went from we're going to add billions a year in revenue to podcasting to actually we're stalled out at 2 billion in domestic, and we're never going to move from there until further notice, right? What does that message send to the marketplace? What does that do to the opportunity that we care about? And if YouTube hadn't just decided recently that this was something worth talking about on investor calls, these tech companies, they blow with the wind sometimes, and they can be a little bit elusive, right? And if we don't even define it, how do we measure its size? And therefore, how do we make a case of its growing importance if we just wash it away and it all becomes part of influencer content and creator-based anything? if we don't define how do we maintain that growth and enthusiasm and focus?
Everything's a podcast. And that's why, because look at it, the $2 billion thing, I'm right there with you and it sucks. But guess what? If it was $20 billion, all the trade associations and all the holding companies and all the agencies from other spaces would have kicked our teeth in years ago, because we have been given so much time to figure it out. And it's so much about a community. I can think of like 3 people in the 4.5 years I've run Sounds Probable who've been exited from the space because they just don't fit our vibe. But I can also tell you about a dozen companies that tried to come in here. Got Oracle with Moat with their brand safety thing. They're just like, we'd love to join podcasting. When can we add our SDK into it? And I was like, Apple and Spotify are not going to add that in, guys. And they just disappeared. These are people that would have run us over and turned this into a parking lot years ago. And what we're watching now is the word podcast is eating influencer marketing alive. You go look at those people that are killing it in influencer marketing or in like influencer media in general. How many of them are podcasters now? Meghan Markle gets on stage at South by Southwest and calls herself a podcaster. That's her title. Not a duchess, not an actress, a podcaster. She's been paid for 2. She's completed 1, right?
That's a fascinating point. Yeah, well, the fact that outranks royalty now.
Right? How cool is that? Is it one of the King Charles or whatever is going to be doing a podcast or something? Like, there's so many interesting things on that. Like, it is the hot word. So I agree with you. But when we look at YouTube doing $32 billion in ad sales in 2023, we're not going to catch up, man. We're not 10Xing anytime soon. So the best thing we can do is grab all of those things and take credit for it. And you mentioned attribution. And the last thing I want to say on that is like, podcasting has had enough data to hang itself, but not enough to compete with the digital platforms. But as the world becomes walled gardens almost primarily, we've had more than them, but less than what people ideally wanted. We've been kind of punished for it. It's been a reason people choose to dismiss us while they spend crazy money on YouTube and on Facebook and on Instagram and TikTok. I met a company once that used to buy an influencer campaign and have them do a specific hashtag so they could run an additional banner targeting that hashtag so they could just even track impressions and double check things. They paid twice to get that. So while I love all the attribution things we're doing, we kill it at modeling. If we can get any data, we can prove it. We can prove it in brand lift. We can prove it in some pixel data, definitely probabilistic data. So if we lose a little bit to meet that minimum, like the most common denominator, like I think it means we move more units. I think it means we sell more stuff. I think it means you double and triple how much you're spending.
Maybe, but if you're in the performance business, I will tell you this, they are still putting vanity URLs in the show descriptions and going, make sure you go to the show description. Okay. We're not ahead. I know we're hard on ourselves. Like Lex Friedman came on, made the same argument that we've had all this time. We can't get our act together, but I've been watching YouTube influencer. We've gone in and out of it before. The MCN's exploded and it's been chaos. Yep. There has not been better infrastructure. And I don't know. I like that it's with third parties and that we don't have to take the publisher's word for it. I don't know if that's going to hold, but at least for the time being. But I'm not sure we're taking steps forward yet.
But there are, in an hour-long podcast, there are multiple points in the podcast where you would find valuable as a host read. 6 ads, right? The Oxford clock model, if I'm not mistaken, says 60 minutes from the host's voice, right? So I can do a host read and 2 30-second ads.
60 seconds.
Sorry. Yeah, 60 minutes would be crazy. In YouTube, if you're not the first advertiser, if you're not in that description with a link before it's expanded, how much does the value tank? If the completion rates are that much lower, do you want to be in the back half of the episode? Do you want to be in the second third of the episode, right? Like, it's probably not the same CPM across the board. So we're doing really great with everybody kind of kicking us around. And that's why I want everything to become a podcast, because if we get to dictate some of this stuff, it's going to grow faster.
I like the stance. It's a good headline. Everything's a podcast. And I think I disagree, but probably not as much, maybe not as much as you thought coming in. I think we need to not cut off our nose to spite our face, and we need to not be married to the past. But I do think, knowing what it is we're trying to protect, what brought us here, and trying to hold on to some of the essence of that, I think it's important for those of us that have really anchored around this thing.
My last thing for you, that is, what happens if we add a little patience? What happens if this year everything is a podcast and then next year you shave it down? Next year you make it what you want. Because if I give you a little bit of clay and you have to turn it into a tiny statue, that sucks. What happens if I'm rolling a whole boulder worth of clay your way, and 2026 you get to make your masterpiece and whittle it down to what does and doesn't work? Because this year you got to try everything. That's my request to everybody. Let's think in years instead of months or quarters.
I like your perspective. You're expanding my mind, and I think you're expanding other minds as well. So thanks for making this time, Bryan. I appreciate
Heck yeah,
it.
man. Always happy to join.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone for joining the Media Roundtable. And this podcast is brought to you by Oxford Road and Veritone One. If you're a marketer, you want to align your brand values with extraordinary business outcomes, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on TikTok, whether that's on RSS feed, go to oxfordroad.com, subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Influencer. And last things, most important, we want to say thank you again to Bryan, to Haley, to Ruby, Kyle, Ezra, Mary Jane, Everett, Neil, Sean, all the hands that have touched this thing, and the team at Podcast One. As always, influence responsibly. That was another conversation from our full series, What's a Podcast? And whether you're a podcaster, an advertiser, or somebody who just cares about this space, I hope this stretched you. It certainly stretched me and is giving us a lot to think about in how we want to live going forward and protect and preserve the essence of the medium while preparing for the changes we need to make to evolve on the road ahead. If you want to hear the full limited 3-part docuseries, What's a Podcast? The Revolution Redefined, check it out wherever you listen to your shows. But if you want to go beyond that and you want to be a part of the movement that we've got here, it's not just about our defining it. It's about figuring out a path forward. Go to our link in the show description and download our free white paper, What is a Podcast? That has research from over 4,000 Americans on what consumers believe that the industry is. And make sure you sign our petition, also available in the link in the show description, to keep podcasting open. You know, this show is not just about content, learning, or entertainment. This is about having a real effect in the real world on issues that are important to all of us. We hope you'll continue to be a part of it and bring this into real life. Go to oxfordroad.com for more resources or click the links in the show description. Thanks for your time.